A lot of people believe financial planning should start at the beginning of their life, and they think estate planning should be left for the later part of their life. What if you go before you get to that later part?
I don't have anything now. What am I having a plan for?
Have we had situations where, because of lack of planning, that business is now crumble?
Of course, sir.
If you don't build your human capital, you can mess up your whole business.
How seamless really is this process?
You don't want to make emotional decisions and disrupt your business. Whatever you think, I don't want to think about that right now, my dear. If you don't think about it right now,
Next of kin go chop your money.
some people, they'll tell you they have a will. Read the will, ChatGPT will.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Well Street Journal, the podcast where finance meets real life. I am your host, Matilda Adefalujo. Today's episode is one that I find very interesting because it reminds me of Nigerian movies and some things that we see in it. So to my right, I have interesting, trusted, loving, analytical guest with me in the studio, and we'll be discussing something that you'd find out in a minute. So I have here,
Anuluakwa Ibusi.
and
I am Abiodun Aisha.
okay, yes, it's nice to have you guys here. It's really, really nice to have you here. I love Anu's, what's this called?
This.
No, this one.
Oh yeah, swatch.
Yeah, I love it.
I love it
looks
too.
good. All right, so like I said, it reminds me of Nigerian movies. I'm going to paint the scenario. So imagine a situation where there is an old man that has a company, let's say Agbaje Enterprises or Agbaje and whatever and co. And then he's like, oh, I'm nearing, say, the age of 70, or can they get up to 80? I don't know. Say is around 70 years. And he's like, oh, it's time to wind down. It's time to, like, someone needs to take over. Meanwhile, the son wants to do music. So basically, we'll be talking about estate planning, yes? So how do we navigate that kind of situation where the father has visions, he has plans? Meanwhile, the children, maybe the family members are not even like in tune, or they're not interested. So how do we move around that?
Actually, very interesting. When you say, do they live past 70? My grandma died at 102. So I think they
Apologies.
they live beyond that sometimes. And it's actually very important. We found out that there's that lacuna really where parents don't really think so much about next gen preparation. And then by the time it comes to mind, sometimes it's a bit late. And it's a bit late to the extent that you can't start talking to a child about taking over a business after the child has grown his or her own, personal interest.
Right.
So, for example, I'm already growing up all along. I've loved music. You never said anything about it. And now I'm in my 20s and you're saying, oh, come and take over my business. Then it's just going to be hard to transition. So I think the first thing is to talk about estate planning. For every individual, you have to have an estate plan. There must be a plan you have in terms of who takes my asset, who succeeds me. And assets is not only, monetary. That's another mistake people make also. There are intangible assets and tangible assets.
Right.
So tangible assets in terms of who, inherits my money, my clothes, my jewelries, my car, my house. Then there's the intangible part of who do I pass this wisdom to? Who do I pass this business acumen to? So there's that aspect also. And to answer your question, I think an integral part of solving this problem will be next-gen preparation. We need to start thinking about next-gen preparation as a very important aspect in terms of estate planning and succession planning, really. So that when I have children, and I know I'm a business owner, I have a business, what's the plan? What's the next gen plan? They should begin to have some sort of leadership training at some certain age. They should begin to be incorporated in the business as early as possible. Don't hide finances from your children. Your child should know the meaning of money. He should have the basic, understanding of money does not fall from the sky.
What if they are not interested?
So that's the thing. Interest is not something you can force.
Yeah.
Interest is something that would grow. And then when you incorporate them into the business very early, you never can tell. They can grow the interest. But guess what? Even if they don't grow the interest, that is where you now begin to think, is there a way to bring professionals who can manage this business? And then your children can always have a part of the business. So for example, before you go, I love music. I have a business. then I can get professionals who would run day to day, and my child will be in charge of the marketing and brands.
Oh, that makes
So
sense.
that there is still a way to incorporate the child in that business without forcing him to take on, the main managerial role. Sorry.
Yeah, I know what's
Yes.
So
going
yeah, basically that's why I feel that for financial planning,
Yeah.
estate planning and succession planning should be a major part of it.
Yeah.
You shouldn't just be thinking of getting the money, hustling for a portfolio, building a portfolio. Also focus on how you plan to transfer these things you built. Your legacy, your businesses. Of course, if you have that at the back of your mind,
Yeah.
it gives you enough time to plan.
Yeah.
If you want to bring professionals in, if you want to do it yourself, if you want to hand over to your children and all of that. So that's how I feel. Anytime you're thinking of financial planning, also think of estate planning and succession planning as part of it. It all works together. That's
So
what
I hear you bringing in other terms. So I think it would be best to understand the difference between all of these things. So you've mentioned succession, you've mentioned financial, and then there's the estate planning. So what's the difference between all of these terms?
So, of course, financial planning is just the process of you trying to, of course, build portfolio, gather
Yeah.
your assets, ensure that your assets grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Estate planning is ensuring that after you've hustled,
Yeah.
after you've done your 9 to 5 for 30 years, after you've been running helter-skelter to ensure that all the money you're making is consolidated in one account and all of that, estate planning allows you to be able to transfer these things seamlessly, ensuring that you're putting professionals or tools in place to properly hand over to your children,
Yeah.
your beneficiaries,
Okay.
or whoever is going to take over. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they all work together. It's a line to me. That's how I see it. Financial planning cannot go without estate planning
Right.
because it works together. Financial planning is building the assets, building the portfolio.
Yeah.
Estate planning is transferring that legacy, that portfolio to the next generation.
And then the
basically.
succession part.
So I think also for estate planning, another integral part is aside, the transfer
Yeah.
to the transfer bit, which is very important. There's also the management bit,
Yeah.
because now trust is a very popular concept in Nigeria, or at least it's gaining grounds in
Yes.
Nigeria. So that you can have an estate plan for the management of your assets even while you're here. So you're seeing how the assets are being managed. You're getting comfortable so that even if I'm not here, it just continues. It's seamless. Unlike, for example, let me mention a tool. I think the two most popular estate planning tools we'll probably be talking about in the course of this podcast would be wills and trusts. So for a will, for
I mean,
example,
we can just go there. We can just go there already.
So for a will, for example,
Yeah.
I'm putting down my wishes, but it doesn't come into effect until my passing.
Yeah.
So it's after passing that comes into effect. But for a trust, I'm putting down my wishes, I'm putting down how I want things to be run, and it begins now. And then it begins to run, and then by the time I pass, it continues to run.
Yeah.
So that estate planning is getting broader and broader, and more people are beginning to accept this
Yeah.
concept.
There's more awareness.
So, yes.
Yeah.
So it's something everybody should think about. You talk to our age mates, for example, and you hear things like, I don't have anything now. What am I having estate plan for?
Forgetting that you earn income monthly. You have the PFA, you have an RSA, you have all of these
Yeah.
things.
Oh, so all of these things
Get
can be
your
passed
pension.
after.
They are valuable. Aren't they
Okay,
valuable? to
that
you?
makes sense.
Exactly. If you pass on, next of kin go chop your money. Do you understand?
Very
Exactly.
sure you have Mary Trade accounts. Who gets that?
Exactly.
Your shares.
Exactly.
Who gets those? So
That's why you actually have to think of estate planning. It's very key, to be honest. It is very, very key. to be
So-
honest.
And the next question would be: that means that there's really no too early, too soon, or too late can be a problem.
As a young professional, I mean, you can have a simple will in place to cover your cash, your net cash assets, your
So-
investments.
So when I think of will, it's like, oh, I'm about to die.
Exactly. That's the mistake a lot of people
No,
make.
I'm about
They
to
just
die.
believe, like I said, a lot of people believe financial planning should start at the beginning of their life, and they think estate planning should be left for the later part of their life. What if you go before you get to that later part? It's better to just have the time, plan it ahead, and ensure that you're doing the right thing at the right time, right?
Right.
There's no wrong time. There's no too early, too late,
Too
and all
late,
of that. I don't think so. I believe the moment you already have something valuable and you really care about it, you should also care about how that thing is transferred to the next person you love. That's how I see it, right?
Yes.
That's how I see
So
it.
again, there's really, that's there's that thing of, I don't want to talk about wills, especially culturally.
Yes.
Talking about death means death is coming closer.
Exactly. Exactly.
I get that misconception. But then again, the more we talk about it, the more it will continue to gain grounds. And one thing I tell people when I speak is the cost of not planning early is more expensive
All right.
than the cost of the fear of the unknown. Whatever you think, I don't want to think about that right now, my dear. If you don't think about it right now, your beneficiaries, the courts, the system, especially if you go and marry under customs and traditions, you didn't do a court wedding. All of those factors will help you determine what happens to your estate
telling you,
later.
yeah. Exactly.
Yes, and it
Yeah,
might
I
not
get
be
that.
so
Yeah,
pleasant.
yeah.
It really might not be so pleasant. So that there's nothing wrong with talking about it now. Again, it's not a rush. It doesn't mean, because I read about wills now, I want to go and draft my will right now. It's okay to walk the journey with a professional so that you're talking about it, you're getting enlightened.
Yes.
Because you will just find out that a lot of the misconceptions you have are really just misconceptions.
That's right.
They are really just misconceptions.
And some other mistake people make also is they believe that once they just write the will, they should keep it somewhere because, of course, the nearest comes. That's not the idea. You can always update your wills. You can always update your trust arrangements. You can always come back, I got a new property, or no, I sold this property, I've sold these shares. You want to update. Update it and feel alive. Know that you're getting more assets you can include in your will. It doesn't mean once you draft your will, you're passing on in the next 1 year.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Have that at the back of your mind and know that you're just planning for the future when you're no longer there.
But how sorry.
Yeah,
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I like to see a will as
Yeah.
a document that comes to life after the death. So of course, imagine that you're no longer there to make
Ooh, I like
do you get?
that.
Imagine
A document
that-
that comes to life after your death.
So imagine that you're no longer there, but you want your loved ones to feel like you're still there. How else do you pass that information? Do you
That's
understand?
good. That's really
Exactly.
good.
that's
So
what I'm saying.
another question is, how seamless really is this process?
It depends on which tool really you're going with. Working with the right professionals makes everything easier at the end of the day.
Well, sure.
It just makes the journey easier. But in terms of structuring itself, it depends on which tool you're going with. For example, a will is a more seamless structure because it just entails you drafting the document.
Right.
Majority of the work comes after demise.
Right.
Because
Oh, I
a
see.
will, you know how when you're watching some movies, I don't know if they still make those movies, how when Chief dies, the family will carry the will and say, we are reading the will of
Yes.
Chief. So.
And then all the wives and children are fighting.
Don't be deceived.
Reality, that's how it works.
That's what I'm telling you, right?
So, after you draft your will, you need
Yes.
to lodge it in court, in the probate court. Now, upon demise, that's where work actually starts. Upon the testator's demise, because your executors are the person who are supposed to carry out, ensure that you get a grant of probate and carry out the wishes as you've stated in
Yeah,
your
this
will.
speaking plenty English.
Sorry. But essentially, your executors, these individuals, are the people who will then go to court and apply for a probate.
Okay.
It's a whole process on its own. So that's actually when majority of the work will probably come in. But for now that you're drafting that will, it's quite seamless. So it's just drafting the documents, lodging the documents. Alternatively, if you're going for a trust structure, it's a little bit more complex depending on the kind of assets you're looking to transfer into that trust.
Yeah.
Again, there are different kinds of trusts depending on your objective. It can be for education, it can be for, I just want to transfer, what's the name? My real estate, for example. I majorly have real estate, I want to transfer that. It can be, for example, at Meristem, we have something known as the Special Needs Trust, where you're setting up a trust for people with special needs.
Yeah.
So there are different kinds of trust. And with the different kinds comes different complexities.
Right.
Okay.
However, generally, a trust is probably a more complex structure to set up than a will. But guess what? All that work, the complexity is on the trustees. They will sort it out.
Not you.
Not you.
So
Because you are dead.
so
While you're here, but the
Well,
trust,
for the other one,
because the trustees are the one that would have to execute, set up these structures. So the work is on them. So that's why I said it's very essential to work with the right professionals. It just makes it seamless. It makes it easier.
Don't forget she mentioned something about management earlier. So a trust allows proper management of your assets
Right.
and then eventual distribution, disbursement, transfer. But for a will, it's just transfer. You're drafting and giving instructions of the transfer upon demise. But for a trust, it allows you to ensure that professionals, asset managers, trust officers, and all of that are helping you manage your assets in the right way to get the best ROIs and all of that. You understand? Yeah, exactly. So your trust actually guarantees proper management and also seamless transfer to your beneficiary.
Yeah.
Do you
That makes
understand?
sense.
Yeah.
And it's actually important to speak with a professional in knowing which one would apply.
Okay.
So that you know when it will apply, when a trust apply, when you will need a hybrid. Because it's very possible. In short, a lot of people that have lots of assets would need both
Both of
because
them.
not all assets can be transferred through a trust.
Okay.
For example, your pension, your bank account has to be listed in a will.
Okay.
At the same time, not all assets are efficiently transferred via a will. It might be better to transfer via a trust. So
Yeah.
you will need to speak with, again, a professional to
Professional,
know which
yeah.
applies or if you will need an hybrid.
Yeah.
But essentially, these are the tools, and it's just very important to have one.
Thank you very much, guys. So I want to go back to succession planning.
Mhm.
So I imagine a situation where, back to Mr. Agbaje or Chief Agbaje in this
Yeah.
instance.
Agbaje.
So back to him, he already, okay, let's assume that he has or at least someone in the office or in the organization thinks or has imagined that, oh, because Chief loves me a lot, or I'm Chief's right hand man. So do you understand what I'm trying to paint? So he has a son that he is looking at, but then there's someone in the organization that feels, oh, I'm Chief's right hand man, so I'm going to be next in line when Chief dies. So how do we manage a situation like this where Baba is looking at his son, meanwhile Mr. Patrick in the office is thinking, oh, I think that he has groomed me, he has mentored me, he has poured all of himself in me. So how do we think about that situation?
I would just say, one, communication is key.
Mm,
Yes, communication is key. If I'm working in a company, there should be clear communication as to growth.
yeah.
There should be clear communication as to expectations,
Mm,
rewards, and things like that. So that Mr. Patrick should have the patriarch now,
Yeah.
who is running the business, should
Yeah.
be clear
Mm.
in terms of, what I expect from you, what you're getting in return.
right.
That's on one side. Another thing I would say is it's very important as patriarchs or matriarchs of businesses to be fair.
Mm,
Be fair, be reasonable. You don't want to make emotional decisions and disrupt your business.
right.
So that there's really no point putting an unprepared child in the business because you just want your child to be a part of the business. There are other ways to ensure that, for example, giving him minority shares or things like that, or even
Okay.
majority shares. Those are up for discussion anyway, but that's entirely different. But the point is, there are other ways, and you can speak with professionals. How else can I incorporate? But it goes back to what I said initially, next gen preparation is important.
Yeah.
If you had plans to involve this child from the beginning, then you should have been preparing the child before now, because it's easier for me to bring my son that is prepared and has the experience and can harness the responsibilities and say, yeah, he's going to be the next in line to take over this business,
Yeah.
than when I bring somebody who doesn't know anything and there's a Mr. Patrick who does all the work.
Yes.
And then I'm saying my child is your new boss.
Yeah.
Then there's going to be an issue.
Yeah.
So I think everything, again, it depends on the patriarch.
Mhm.
It really does depend on the patriarch. I won't say don't bring your child. Of course, bring your child, but make sure you train the child. Make sure there are clear communication in terms of expectations and rewards to Mr. Patrick, for
Right.
example.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Treat your employees fairly still.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, I think, that kind of sums up.
Yeah, and what do you think?
I also feel that you can even have, if you are probably worried about how this business will continue, probably the company and all of that, you can actually have professionals come on board as well, probably join the governance of the company to ensure that at least this family business still goes within the family. You are sure that trustees, for example, they're on your board, for example, you are sure that the trustees will protect your interest even when you're no longer there.
Right.
They'll be able to seamlessly transfer that your interest to that your child or your beneficiary that is still growing.
Right.
Pending while Mr. Patrick, for example, is still doing the good work. At least the family name, the
Yeah.
legacy is still there.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. So I believe that actually, that's what I was even going to mention, that even when it comes to these tools we mentioned, it also helps to reduce disputes and conflicts.
That's right.
Because of course, if these tools are not in place, Mr. Patrick will still be thinking, oh, Chief Agbaje is meant to appoint me. Whereas maybe Chief Agbaje in his mind wanted maybe a professional or his children.
Yeah.
So of course, if these tools are in place, the instructions are there,
Yeah.
they are clearly stated, it will reduce, of course, conflict and dispute.
Yeah.
Of course.
And
Like you
I
said,
think-
communication is actually
communication
key.
is very, very important. And I think nothing stops Chief Agbaje from asking his son to come and intern in the company, like, so that he learns the ropes.
So
too.
that's part of next gen preparation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, when you're preparing such a child, even if he's not interning in your company, I'm expecting that he's interning in
Yeah.
companies
Yeah,
already. He's
true.
gaining the experience.
Exactly.
It's important if I'm good at what I do and you bring someone equally as good or even better, and it's very clear this is a family business.
Yes.
It makes it easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The issue is usually mostly, if it's not greed, then most times the issue is when you're bringing somebody who is not capable or
Yeah,
somebody who,
exactly.
in terms of expectation, is not just at par. Then, of course, someone like a Mr. Patrick would feel again, rewards are important.
That's
Yes,
right.
if Mr. Patrick is putting a lot, then give him a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you
Even a
cannot be
lot.
running up and down thinking, or even planning his future. Like, oh, yeah,
Yes.
when Chief dies, I'll be the MD.
Why
And
is
he's now.
Patrick thinking about
I don't know why Patrick.
Patrick might kill Chief one day. Chief should be careful.
Hello,
But sorry. Let's continue.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So, what in your experience do you think is the most overlooked asset? I know that you're talking about tangibles and intangibles, and we also, like Anna said, focus on financials. Financial wealth assets. So, what do you think is one of the most overlooked assets?
Mm.
Hmm.
Overlooked assets.
If I were to answer, do you want to go first or I should?
No.
Okay, if I were to
Ladies
answer,
first.
I would say one of the most overlooked would be the intangibles.
Mhm.
And under the intangibles, because for tangibles, everybody kind of, even if they don't necessarily have an estate plan, they are quite aware that I have these properties.
Yes.
They are aware of it.
Mhm.
For intangibles, there are times that people are not actually aware that that's an asset.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They're not
Exactly.
even aware of the asset. So, for example, let me give you an example. For intangibles, you have human capital, you have intellectual capital. Now, the human capital are the human beings in your family, organization, wherever that is. Intellectual capital is what do they have up there? What do they bring to the table
Right.
in terms of, growing this thing that I am building?
Mm.
A lot of time, patriarchs, matriarchs, they kind of just, is either they don't really recognize it as an asset, or they undermine the importance of
Exactly.
it as an asset.
Yeah.
If you don't build your human capital,
Mm.
you can mess up your whole business, because then you would end up raising either ungrateful children,
Mhm.
or children that have no idea about what you're doing,
Mhm.
or you would, at the end of the day, you're already creating a gap where it's affecting continuity, legacy transfer.
Right.
The whole plan of, for example, a succession plan is, I want to make sure that generations to come, they are okay. My business continues, my wealth continues to pass. Now, there's an analysis, there's a data in Nigeria, not Nigeria, sorry. There's a world data saying, where they say shared sleeves to shared sleeves in 4 generations, which means that wealth has not been able to be passed to the 4th generation successfully so far. There are very few. So that by the 1st generation, you see that they are working hard, they are building this empire. 2nd generation, they're hardly innovative. They're just trying to manage it.
Right.
Daddy gave me this, and I'm going to manage it as best as I can.
Mhm.
But there's no innovation. Nothing new is coming to the table. By the 3rd generation, you have spenders. Oh, 4th generation is gone. So there's a problem.
Flexers.
Because by
We call them
then,
flexers,
And then we have the Gen Z.
oh my by then, that generation then has to start from the scratch
Yes.
again. So if actually patriarchs and matriarchs begin to look, how can I develop human and intellectual capital of my family? I think it would help in terms of wealth transfer. It will make wealth transfer more seamless. Because imagine where you're grooming children that, their intellectual capital is maximized.
Yes.
Human capital maximized. Don't ignore their mental health. Don't ignore their psychological being. Yes, I mean, because it's only a mentally capable person that will be able to give you maximum output. So you have to be mindful of the human beings in your family. Don't say, oh, I'm thinking of how to make money for you. I don't have time. I don't spend time with my children. You're already ignoring the human capital.
Right.
You need that human capital. You need the emotional connection.
Right.
So I think a very undermined asset would be the human and intellectual capital. And if we begin to develop that aspect, I think we will see tremendous difference in terms of succession planning, estate planning, and ultimately generational wealth transfer.
Right.
It will just make us better for it.
Yeah.
Make our work even easier.
Well, I also want us to consider the fact that this is it's emotional.
Yes.
Because you're thinking, oh, I have built this legacy. I understand what you said, that you have to train, you have to have built them in a way. But then you also have to think about the fact that it is quite emotional. You're thinking, yes, I've built it to this point, but how sure am I, despite all of these things that I've put in place, despite the plannings, how sure am I that they'll be able to carry on this legacy as much as I have built it, or as much as I imagine or even envisage?
Yes.
So I think that emotional bit, do you think it's one reason why it is quite difficult for maybe founders to transfer legacy properly?
I believe so.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think, what does planning mean? Planning means taking your time to make these decisions, right?
Mm.
If you actually plan right, I mean, you already know that this your son that likes football. You want him to be the MD of this your bank. You plan properly and ensure that, like she said, internships in like-minded companies, ensure that he's properly groomed in that line. Ensure that at least you are sure that, because I mean, I'd rather transfer my legacy or my asset to my direct bloodline than a stranger, right? So I'd rather prep that person, ensure that this person can actually have the capacity to continue what I have built. That's how I see it. I believe I would actually properly train that person. Planning. That's why planning is important to me. It's emotional. I believe.
I have something.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
feel
go
like
ahead.
by the side. So
That's how I see it.
question, you see that doubt. Planning is important. So let's even
Yes.
say you plan, you still have the doubts.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that now happens. Let me first of all backtrack. If you made the plan, as Anu said, there's probability that you won't have the percentage of doubt will not be as high by the time you get to that
I believe
stage.
so.
Yes.
Because a lot of that would have been handled at the planning stage to the extent that I'm trying to incorporate this child in this. But as the child continues to grow, you realize that he does not have any business acumen. This one is not interested.
Yes.
The point is, as I begin to see it, the planning phase is then what happens?
Good.
What do I do?
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, so what do I do? So it's part of the planning phase.
Okay.
Exactly.
First is the next gen prep. It's important. So let's say that now fails. I mean, it's very possible your child just loves something else and is not interested in that business. And that's why we had said initially, there are alternatives.
Yeah.
I don't believe in forcing a child to do something they are not passionate about, so that you can try your best to create the interest in them. So, for example, in creating the interest, you can even make it a reward system where they are not doing internship for free. After internship, they are paid, or the reward of their internship is their vacation, their summer vacation or something. So it's good to have reward system in place where you're rewarding these children. It's not just, they're going for internships and they're getting nothing.
Yeah.
It's to stir up the interest. It can be for every internship you get paid, and the payment can either be, monetary, or you get to go for vacation this year. That determines your vacation.
Right.
Something like that. So it just kind of builds the interest. But after everything is said and done, if still they are not interested as they grow or after they've grown, then get professionals
Get them
to
come on board,
manage
right? Yeah.
the business. It's not a must your children are the
That's
ones
why
that
we're
carry
here.
out.
Exactly. That's
why
what
we're
you're like.
Exactly.
I know
Yeah.
that day-to-day management is kind of different from ownership.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's
Exactly.
very possible for the children to still be a part of the ownership structure
And
without
not-
managing the
that's true.
day-to-day
That's
of the
true.
business.
That's why
So
we-
you can have professional.
Yeah, no, keep
Like
saying that's where we are.
you can have professionals.
Right.
That's why we are
who
here.
then, run
Yeah.
the day-to-day of the business. And that's even, it's better for you because you don't want a child that would forcibly manage your business.
Yeah, and then
It
crumble
serves
everything.
nobody.
Becomes a spender
Serves
and a
nobody's
flexer, right?
interest.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you never can tell. His own children might now get interested and, they
Right.
get involved in day-to-day
Let's-
management.
let's-
You
let's
really
not-
want your blood to manage it. But I mean, just get professionals
Right.
and then make them part of the ownership structure instead.
Thank you. So, to wrap up, I know that it's obvious, but have we had situations where, because of lack of planning, that businesses now crumble?
Of course, of course. Like people would say, if you fail to plan, of course you're planning to
planning to
fail. So
fail.
of course, if you don't plan right,
Yeah.
of course you're wrong. You're already wrong from the beginning. So yeah, there are instances like that.
There are
I
even
kid
two
you not.
types of failure. If you fail to plan at all, of course, there's possibility of failure. Then if you plan wrongly, if that's the word to use, you plan wrongly. Because there are some people, they will tell you they have a will. Read the will, ChatGPT will. The will is flawed on all
The will of the Lord will be done.
It is flawed.
Yeah.
So by the time you have that kind of plan, of course, it's going to fail. In short, you're just you're exposing your assets and your beneficiaries to more litigation. So it's very important to plan and then plan with professionals.
Right. All right. Thank you, guys. So it was such a delight having you on the show today. So to our viewers, I hope you've learned a lot today. I hope you've learned to go and start writing your will now. And also, of course, to plan financially your succession. What's the other one? Estate. Plan your estate, everything, bring them together. But don't wait till maybe you have maybe a health crisis or there is a situation so where you can start now with your money in Meritrade, in Wealth Buddy, just have a professional help you look through, or what can I do, your intellectual property, everything. All right, so till we see you next episode, keep investing.